guys, welcome to part 4. Right, what can we take from Proverbs? Well, Soloman's example. I'm going to get straight in there because I'm hoping it's not a long one. Anyway, you guys know about parts 1, 2 and 3. Part 1, Solomon's lifestyle, what kind of man he was. Part 2, wisdom. Why is it important to us? Why is it valuable? And 3, looking back at Solomon, the way he lived, and what we could learn from his lifestyle. Now, part 4, as I said, we're looking at Proverbs again. What can we take from it? And Solomon's example. Now, you could argue that we did a bit of that last week. We did, but looking at what we can learn from him and his example are kind of, they're one and the same. They kind of hold hands with each other in a way, but they're a little bit different. So we'll get to that in part 2 of the second half after Proverbs. But anyway, so Proverbs 1 to 7. I'm going to quickly look at that. Give me verse. Okay. Proverbs 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. And the title of the chapter is Purpose and Theme. So straight away, it's telling you what Proverbs is about. Verse 2. For gaining wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instruction and prudent behaviour, doing what is right and just and fair. So already it's telling us wisdom. That's what Proverbs is about. It's for gaining wisdom and instruction. So it's not just about learning the odd tidbit. It's like, okay, that's good to know. This is good to know. Don't do this. Don't do this. Do this. Do this. It's also to instruct us not just like in a like a parent giving a lesson sort of thing. It's more like it's actually a full-blown lesson as well. It's like being in a class. It's a master class on how to be wise. And understanding words of insight. Now, we did talk about those before. Discernment, insight, which is a word of insight, and judgment. Now, we did talk about those words last time, so we're not going to go too much into those. Verse 3, for receiving instruction in prudent behaviour, doing what is right, just and fair. So, again, better educating ourselves on how to behave. Being prudent. So, being prudent usually is used in a context that is, if you're being prudent, if you're a prudent person, you're on the ball. You're constantly looking to be not active. Active's not the word I'm thinking of. Looking to be on top of things, correct. Following the right way. So, sorry, I had a notification. And what's just and fair? So just again, knowing what's right, and fair. Keeping things fair for not just yourselves but other people, and giving prudence to those who are simple. So in being prudent ourselves, it allows us, in knowing what's right, just and fair, to help others who are simple to be prudent as well. Now, when we say simple, in the footnotes of Proverbs, it does note that in Hebrew, simple denotes a person, so it names, labels, suggests an individual who is gullible, without moral direction, and inclined to evil. So, what it's not saying is that simple people are evil. That's not what it's saying, alright? Just because you like the simple things in life doesn't mean you're evil. That's not what it's saying. Simple is just an English translation for the Hebrew word, which I don't know Hebrew, unfortunately, but that particular word is what it means, gullible, without moral direction, and inclined to evil. But obviously it's, in English it helps us understand a little better. So if you don't know what gullible means, it means that you're likely to believe gullible things. So for example, if someone asks you to go find a left-handed screwdriver, and you go look for it, then you're a little bit gullible, because I don't know if you've noticed, but you can use screwdrivers with both hands. Believe me, I learned that one the hard way when I was younger. I haven't got a screwdriver on hand, so I can't show you. Or if someone asks you to find a skyhook, because they need to hook the sky. Those don't exist. You can't hook the sky is there. Anyway, so gullible, without moral direction, knowing right from wrong, or how to treat people in fairness, in kindness, in the ways that we're instructed to in Hebrews. Or inclined to evil. Now, when it says inclined to evil, it doesn't mean that, again, like I said, simple people are evil. What it what it's trying to imply is that people that don't know right from wrong, that are tempted to make bad decisions, are more likely to make bad decisions. So it's like saying, if you put somebody in a room full of bad people, not a single person in, okay, I say bad people, let's better say individuals that themselves don't know better. Let's say they've never been told how to treat people well, how to make right decisions. If we've got a room full of those people, then no one is there to teach anyone else how to behave well, right? If stealing is wrong, but no one told you stealing was wrong, and then people ask you to go steal something, you don't know any better. So chances are, if it works out for you, why not do it, right? Sometimes that's the mentality people will have if they don't know better, because they don't have that understanding of why it's wrong, how it can negatively affect the person being stolen from, how it can affect their families and friends. So everything has a sort of ripple effect in that way. So it's important that in us aiming to be prudent, by seeking wisdom, by looking through Proverbs and trying to better our insight, we can help better guide other people. So now, again, this leans into that whole, choose your friends wisely sort of thing. It's still good to have best friends that are not Christians, but better yet is it to have best friends that are also Christians. I'm not saying you can't have one with it. You can have both, as long as you understand that as much as you are as an influence on other people, people are an influence on you all the time. And we've got to guard ourselves, we've got to guard our hearts with wisdom all the time when we're around people that don't know better. And when I say don't know better, I'm not saying that they're foolish or dumb, or less educated, I should say, to the right way of living, but by just being around the wrong media and the wrong people, or at the wrong time when they're making wrong choices, sometimes that can cross a few wires when we're not careful, and we have to be on guard. And that's why it's important for us to be good examples, so the opposite becomes true. So instead of them affecting us negatively, if we're constantly a beacon of light and positivity for other people in our wisdom and kindness and love and grace that we show others, chances are we might rub off on them instead, and maybe even question what is right, what is wrong. Hey, why is Lennox always so bouncy and positive and full of energy? They might come and ask you. Or they might just look at you and go, maybe I should try and aim for that instead. Okay. Verse 5. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. So, just because you're wise already, doesn't mean you can't get wiser. Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived, and as we know, he made mistakes. Therefore, you can never be wise enough. And to that extent, it's important, as we said before, we act on our wisdom, not just to have it, because again, Solomon didn't act on his wisdom in his later years, and we saw where it got him. So it's important for us to constantly... It's like, on your phone has an update. The reason why phones get updates is so they can constantly have the newest features. They can be bigger and better, and have broader access to apps. If phones didn't get updated, if a new app came out or a game came out that you wanted on your phone, you wouldn't be able to play it because your phone wasn't updated to the version it needed to be. So, in this case, it's important that we continue to update our mental software, update our wisdom software, so that we're always on top of things, being prudent. Being prudent is also prioritizing things, putting things in the right order, so we're not making poor decisions because we're not prioritizing the right things. And verse 6, for understanding proverbs and parables and sayings and the riddles of the wise. So, sometimes we'll read Proverbs, read something and go, actually, I don't get why this is relevant. Oh well. But by reading Proverbs and getting through the parts we can understand, what this verse is saying is that by doing that, it enables us to better understand why we might read things further on and go, oh, actually, no, that thing I read before that didn't make sense about being a moral compass and living the right way is important now, so I should probably go do that. 7, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So we talk about the fear of the Lord, and I'm not going to go too much into it because that's its own subject. But when we talk about the fear of the Lord, we're not just talking about being afraid of God. We're not. I mean, there is a level of fear, but it's not fear as in you're going to hide under your bed sheets and be afraid of God. No, if anything, what it's trying to say is, in those times, fear often related to people that were in awe. And I don't mean, oh, it's a cute thing. I mean awe as in A-W-E. When you're like looking at something like, whoa, that's cool. Like, I'm sure many of you have watched the cartoon character, like, I don't know, your Dragon Ball Z, and you see them doing all the cool moves and acrobatics and all, and you're like, whoa, that's cool. I wish I could be like that. That's being in awe of what they're able of doing, you know. Or watching a strongman lift like 500 pounds of weights, and it's like, just 500 pounds is heavier, right? Just for context, 500 pounds is probably like 6 of me. Like, on like a metal bar. Imagine you've got 3 of me holding on to a bar at one end, 3 of me on the other, and a man, just single man, lifting it. That's impressive. I can barely lift half of me, let alone 6 of me. Anyway, so again, so that awesome, like, wow, that's the sort of thing we need to be able to respect and understand when it comes to God and His knowledge, because it's the beginning of learning how to be wise. But by understanding how awesome God is, you can then understand why He was able to make Solomon the wisest man on the planet, because God had the ability to just go, bang, you're wise now. You're the wisest man that ever lived. And it goes on to say, fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now, unfortunately, as direct as that statement is, it's true. You know, folks that decide not to make wise choices and choose to be ignorant and not listen to good direction are more likely to make foolish decisions. If someone, when it talks about instruction again, instruction is teaching. It's bettering yourself. Let's see. I believe. Okay, it's all right. I'm going to follow on to that in a second with another verse, but we're running out of time. What I'll say is, look up Proverbs 2, 1 to 11. It's very wordy, but what it goes on to talk about are the moral benefits of wisdom, and again, how important it is for us to aim for it, to go for it. You know, one of the moral benefits is that God will protect us. And when I say protect us, I don't mean He's actually going to put up walls around us and keep us in bubble wrap. He helps us by stay on the right path. It protects us by helping us make good decisions. By aiming and looking for His wisdom, we stay clear of bad choices and foolish choices that would otherwise do us harm. If you're not making a choice that would hurt you, more often than not, it won't hurt you, right? Right. Last bit. We're going to look at Solomon's example. So it's sort of the capstone now. This is the sort of the top of the... Right. So looking at how Solomon lived, really briefly, what can we learn from his example? So we learned that in his younger years, when he was listening to his elders, so his father, who was, before he passed on, was giving him his wisdom as well. Prime being, follow the Lord with all your heart. And when he did do that, Solomon became the wealthiest, wisest, well-known, popular, powerful man in his era, as we know. People from around the world came to meet him. He was a celebrity. Solomon was... I don't want to do a disservice by comparing him to somebody like Simon Cowell, but if you can, like, all these celebrities you see on TV that garner attention, and some people are, like athletes. Some people used to look to David Beckham because of his athleticism and his popularity. Obviously, not all celebrities are good examples, because not all of them are going to make good decisions. However, this is why, for Solomon, people used to come around and see him in all his glory and what he did. Now, again, this is when he chose to live as Proverbs was saying, especially through verses 1 through 7, about how it is important to seek wisdom and pursue it. In chapter 2, verse 1 through 11, it does go on to talk about how important it is and how valuable it is to pursue wisdom. Search for it like hidden treasure. So, you know how pirates, look for buried treasure? They go to extreme lengths to find that buried treasure, don't they? They go sailing the high seas, they take their shovels and find the X on the map, wherever it is. X marks the spot. But it's not just a simple trek in the park, is it? It's not like a little walk around to the corner shop. Finding treasure is meant to be difficult. It is meant to be arduous and an adventure and take a while, because it's worth finding in the end. Treasure, by the word's definition, is valuable. It is something that you want to add to your life because it adds value. It brings something to the table that's worthwhile. So that's why we should be always looking for wisdom. And as we said earlier, we've got to be updating our brain software and chasing it. So that's the good. That's what we can take from Solomon's example. When he was pursuing wisdom, he was chasing it. He was behaving the kingly manner as he was supposed to be. His subjects benefit. I mean, again, we're talking about our wisdom and how it affects other people, helping rub off on other people in a positive way, in a good way, and not following bad choices and bad examples. Solomon had that effect on his people when he was following the Lord. The Lord guided him through the right paths of living, and everyone around him admired him, respected him, and he was popular. Not, again, that life isn't a popularity contest, though. It was just one of the benefits of being wise that he had. Now, again, we know that it didn't always go well. There came to a point where he had 700 wives. First mistake. And all those other people as well that he let influence his life. Now, that wasn't the only thing he did wrong. The other big thing that he did wrong was he turned away from God. Now, this meant that he was worshipping other idols. A lot of them were gods that his wives worshipped. So every time he got himself a new wife that believed in another god, it was like, all right, let's find out about your God. Let's go see what's on with your rules and what you got to do. And it led him to make a lot of poor decisions. And in Ecclesiastes, it does go on to talk about how false gods are bad. Shouldn't do it. But he did it anyway because he let folks that weren't on the same level of wisdom as he was, helping make poor decisions, let their example rub off on him and let their poor choices affect him as well. It took a toll on him as a person, even though he was just and right and good and fair to begin with, because he chose poorly in the people he put around himself. I mean, again, even if you're super wise and smart, you can make mistakes unless you do your best to stay updated and act on those good choices and good decisions, and living a prudent lifestyle. Because he'd lost that and he fell away to these other gods, these fake gods. None of them were real, they're all fake, and he was doing a bunch of foolish stuff to follow those routes, but you can see how his life led to ruin. And he was unhappy, he was sad, depressed. And eventually, he was usurped. He was removed from his throne. And yeah, it wasn't good. It didn't end well for Solomon. But it goes to show how quickly things can decline if we're not putting God first in our lives and we're constantly searching to keep ourselves updated on wisdom. So, to summarise, by pursuing God in his wisdom, and following his heart, and reading Proverbs, that helps. We can look to better ourselves so that we can better others, be prudent, and live a good life. As Solomon did in his early years when he followed God and his heart and his law and his wisdom. By not doing those things, the opposite can happen. By not letting wisdom guide our choices, our understanding of good and bad, then you leave yourself open to being manipulated by the opposite. So, again, as I said before, with iron sharpens iron. If you choose to spend your time speaking to Christian friends and you do nothing but talk about the Bible, studying the words, the Word of God, and praying for each other, and doing fun things, and hanging out and having a coffee, getting to know each other, that is in a way that is beneficial to both of you. Talking positive and encouraging each other and having fun in a good way, then life gets richer. When you choose to spend time around folks that choose to make poor decisions and do bad things, the chances are they're going to leave that impression on you. And it doesn't mean that every bad person you're going to stand beside is going to make you do bad things. You still have the choice, and that's the important thing about being better and prudent, is so that we can, instead of being dragged down, we can maybe pull people up and sharpen them and not be dulled by their dullness. Anyway, right, guys, sorry this is a long video, but thank you for your patience. I really hope you guys pursue Proverbs, pursue wisdom, and God's path above all things. And see you after the video. Have a good one.